Show, live on Channel 5, of course, with Steve First, Christine Hamilton, the fabulous Alan Deacon, starring in this new play, The Retreat. He'll be bringing you the rest of the headlines in about 30 minutes' time. But right now, I'd really love to hear what you think of this frankly horrible clash between hunters and hunt sabs at the weekend. 0207 173 5555 is the number. The Daily Mail's take is "Don't touch my horse." Little sympathy for the man given a good thrashing by its rider. The clash kicked off on Saturday when the East Sussex and Romney Marsh Hunt Club, who insist they were taking part in a legal trail hunt, met about 10 sabs on public ground at Pevensey Marshes. And the 4-minute video recorded by Brighton Hunt sabs, I think, makes frankly uncomfortable viewing. The first angle appears to show the huntswoman at the centre of it all, riding at speed towards 2 of the sabs. It's at that point that one of them, a masked man, steps forward and grabs the reins of her mount, and that's when she starts whipping him repeatedly with her crop while screaming, "Let go of my horse." You can actually hear another sab shouting about, "You can't ride people down," and it all ends with the beaten man, as far as I can see, being pulled off by a colleague. Now, the saboteurs claim the woman rode into the man and hit him 17 times with her crop. Even if that is the case, others don't blame her because he'd grabbed her mount. The police are now investigating, but I'd love to know whose side you're on. The Brighton Hunt sabs claim there was illegal activity planned. The Terrier boys, they say, were on 3 quad bikes, one with no number plates on a public road, and another equipped with spades and terriers. It seems, the Hunt sabs went on, they were planning on hunting more than a trail. That was on a Facebook post. The East Sussex and Romney Marsh Hunt have previously been accused by sabs of illegal fox hunting back in 2015, although nothing came of the allegations. The Hunt say they always act lawfully within the confines of the Act. Speaking about Saturday's clash, a spokesman said they don't condone the violence, even when, quotes, faced with extreme provocation and personal harassment. Steve, we were just saying during the break, there seems to be something about the hunting and hunt-sabbing movement where aggro and argy-bargy seem to be more important than either welfare or hunting.
Yeah, it's all about my right to do this and you have no right to do that, yeah. And I don't believe it. I don't believe that people should fox hunt. But
well, they're not. They would say they're not fox hunting.
I know. But this is one of the things we did say in the break is that it always takes a moment and it kicks off on both sides. The passion is so great and it's like a powder keg just waiting to go off. I think the disproportionate use of force by the person on a horse with a whip is plain to see. I think it's utterly disproportionate. But
the Hunt sab was clinging onto her horse.
I think clinging onto reins of a horse. And I've seen horse racing. I've seen these are huge beasts that it wasn't
scare easily.
Would it have been different if he had hung on to her, the saboteur, hung on to her? Would that have been legitimate for her to respond with to hit him if he was hanging on to her?
Yeah, I think he could have hung on to any part of her or it, and she would have behaved in the same way. I think there was no like get off my horse before, or I will hit you. I will hit you if you. I think it just.
There is actually official advice, police advice on what you should do if someone grabs your horse, and it says this is quoting from a website I found. When an official police advice, when an assailant seizes your bridle, you should move forward as violently and as fast as possible into the attacker. Never pull backwards and scream, "Get off!" It doesn't say anything about whipping them. So.
Push your huge animal, strong animal toward a
police on horses.
Yeah, okay, well that's slightly different. And
was it not self-defence?
No, it wasn't. Absolutely not self-defence. I just think I'm not.
Well, at the moment, the police are investigating.
Because that's crazy. If that was on a council estate and it was someone else like defending themselves with that many beatings, that would not happen. And I don't know if this is a class thing again, where the privileged get to get away with certain things that other people can't, because that looked diabolical. That horse, you don't beat on.
I do have to say that when you see people sort of castigated in the national press for touching someone on the knee, that repeatedly beating someone with a whip 17 times over the head, does seem, you think, why isn't this on the front page? Yeah. It is also worth mentioning a lot of people who work in country sports, and they will say it is not all about posh people riding around on horseback, although that is how it is often seen.
Yeah.
Christine?
I was going to pick up on that particular point. It isn't all about posh people riding on horses. There are an awful lot of just perfectly ordinary farmers and, everyday people who go hunting.
You never meet a poor farmer, though. That's a joke. There are loads of poor farmers. I just love chicken.
What concerns me about this, there was, as I understand it, there was no evidence that the hunt was not obeying the law. No evidence. Nothing's been proved. And hunting is a perfectly, not with dogs, not with, trail hunting, is a perfectly legal occupation.
As is demonstrating against it.
As is demonstrating against them. But I think,
So then it comes down to, Christine, how does it start? And as I was at pains to try and get across it in the intro, based on the video, which is all I have,
we have,
is that she rides into them.
The saboteurs were attempting, we don't know, do we? Let's assume that the hunt was behaving legally and legitimately. There is no evidence to prove that they were not.
There is evidence to suggest they might not, because they had
they might not. Oh, well, they might. All sorts of might.
But evidence has to be tested in court.
Of course it does. So we're all talking about hypotheticals because we don't know the exact situation. The saboteurs, they were hooded and masked, which is pretty frightening.
And we live in a world where we watch more on CTV than anywhere else on the planet, which is also very frightening.
A horse and rider is as one, and attack my horse, you attack me.
But then are we saying if you feel like you're going to get attacked, are we saying now it's okay to stop violence?
Well,
if you feel you're going to be attacked, because if you start getting into that,
I'm still with you. I think that what happens on a field in Pevensey Marshes seems to be a case apart from what would happen on the streets. I think somebody 17 times with a whip. You're going to face serious
advice out as well.
That was a frenzied attack by that woman on that man.
A bruise and a bump to the head. It didn't require medical attention, so it wasn't as though she was lashing out that. She was just trying to get him off her horse.
So you think it was proportionate?
Well, all we have is the video to go on now. Why did she ride at the saboteurs to start with? What were they doing? What were they saying? I mean, it's the hunt saboteurs' own video, so they would maybe cut out something that wasn't to their
well, let's be fair. The hunt can have their own video, and if they choose not to or choose not to show it, again, the crime. There's no award for omission.
The saboteurs knew what they were going to do, so they go armed with a video camera. The huntsmen, the women, huntspeople, I suppose we have to call them, were just going out pursuing their legal business. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt.
Pursuing their legal business. There's no doubt about that.
Well, is it okay to go and grab a horse?
Well, no, because he grabbed the horse. Allegedly, I might argue, because the horse was ridden at him. We start off. You're trying to set a premise.
Well, you're mad to grab a horse that's riding at you.
Well, already he's doing something stupid, and he's not behaving in a provocative manner.
By being there, he's behaving in a provocative manner.
Yeah, exactly. He's trying to stop somebody.
Then you can argue that Hunt being there is there in a provocative manner.
He's not trying to punch a horse. At no point does he go out.
No.
And so, I mean, there are ways that you could attack a horse. He's not trying to do that.
It just seemed disproportionate. It did. It just seemed too much. It just seemed, she doesn't stop. And I understand the whole defending yourself thing, but then I can't understand why it's one rule for one and one rule for other.
The bridle. She was trying to get him off her horse.
I'm just coming from this point of view of, things happen on the street in a sense, and young people, for instance, they feel they can be attacked. They feel like knife crimes on the rise, and it's hard to. It kind of feels like I'm going off subject, but what I'm trying to explain is that if that advice the police gave there to basically go out there, get the horse and attack, push through. I just think that's one rule for one and one rule for another. Because if you feel like you're getting attacked, then what is to stop you doing that to a human? If you feel a human's going to just come charging at you like, do you know what I'm saying? And then what, are you allowed to defend yourself then? I'm sure you're not allowed to just start hitting someone 17 times. So, I don't know.
I get you. If you're afraid about being attacked, should you be allowed to strike first? Which is essentially...
It's an instinct, isn't it? Self-defense is an instinct. It's how we stay alive.
Do you know what? I'm so glad I was just lying in bed watching TV on Saturday. I felt fairly sorry for myself at the time. I won't deny it, but now I'm feeling rather smart. Anyway, after the break, it's over to you. I mean, the obvious question is whose side are you on? But maybe you might have a different view of the huntsman or the saboteur. If so, we'd love to hear from you. Use your number 0207 173 5555. Lots of your calls after this break. Tuesday show with Steve First, Christine Hamilton, and Adam Dickon. Adam's going to bring you all the other headlines shortly, including a lung cancer test in supermarket car parks, which is not much help to get your groceries delivered, and why pregnant women should sleep on their sides. But right now, we're asking if it's time to move sides, whose side you're on in this unpleasant, violent clash at the weekend between Hunt saboteurs and a woman from the East Sussex and Romney Marsh Hunt. 0207 173 5555. That's the number you need. The police, they're looking for witnesses to this attack, which appears to start, I do stress that, appears to start with the huntswoman riding in a number of masked sabs. One of them grabs the horse's bridle, and that leads to the rider raining multiple blows down onto his head with her whip as she screams, "Get off my horse." Now, a Hunt spokesman said they don't condone any form of violence, but felt their riders had been subject to extreme provocation, personal harassment and other offences. This is on days gone by. The subs alleged that the Hunt were going to do more than legal drag hunting. We've had no response on that. Before the break, Steve felt with passions running high on both sides. He felt this was a frenzied attack. He didn't feel it was self-defence by the rider, as the saboteur wasn't trying to punch or attack the horse. Christine stressed, first of all, we must take a sort of classist view of this. It's not all about poshos hunting. It's a perfectly legal activity. And she veers towards self-defence by the huntswoman. And Adam thought that if we saw this kind of violence on a council estate, it would not be tolerated by the authorities. People would have already been arrested and hauled up in front of the beat. And he wonders what's going on with it. A different story if you're down in the home counties. What are people saying at home, Scott?
We've got Amy on line 1.
Morning, Amy.
Morning.
So, what do you make of it, Amy?
I'm totally with the rider, coming from a horse background. If you pull on a horse's mouth...
Whoa, hang on a minute, Amy. The story starts, as we see with the video, with the rider riding a horse into two people.
Yeah.
Is that what you would do as a horsewoman, Amy?
What you've got to understand of a horse with saboteurs, there's small children on horse rides, very small children. If your child is on a horse ride...
Amy, forgive me. Can we just focus on what we saw? There were no children I saw in that video, so let's stick with what we see, right?
Okay.
We see a woman on a horseback, initially riding into two men standing on the ground.
And as she rides up to two men, she says, that's the name out of Rob Tyler,
So I couldn't hear you breaking up there. I just want to go through it step by one. Riding at people is not acceptable, right?
No.
Grabbing a horse's bridle is not acceptable.
Absolutely not acceptable.
And beating someone repeatedly with a whip is...
Can a horse go to the police station? Can a horse have charges for a protest?
Well, is it with respect, is it cruel to hold a bridle? When I see horses finish horse racing, they're led into the winner's enclosure by their bridle.
It was pulling on the horse's mouth.
Or the horse rider was pulling the horse away. I don't know. The question was whether hitting someone repeatedly is acceptable.
And I asked the question, you can see the horse's head pulling up and down in complete fear. She's surrounded by...
That's a very subjective opinion as well. I'm not in a position to answer that. I don't know if you're in a position to state so. We're not animal psychiatrists. 17 blows on the head with a whip.
Well, it's not a steel crowbar. Come on.
I didn't say, Amy, I didn't say it was, and you keep trying to shift the dialogue from what we've seen into stuff that you want to change the conversation with. It wasn't an iron bar as far as I know. No one said it is apart from you. The only thing no one's quibbling. It's a riding crop, a whip.
Yeah.
17 times on the head. Is that proportionate?
She hit it till we let go. That's what I saw. I don't know what you...
That's not the question, Amy. The question is whether it's proportionate.
For me, until we let go, yes, it would be.
Okay,
yes,
thank you. No, I've got it. It's proportionate. Thank you. Let's have another.
We've got Andrea on line 4.
Morning, Andrea.
Oh, fine, yeah. I think it's completely unacceptable of that lady using such force.
Hang on. Let's just deal with the previous. Go step by step. I don't think you're going to argue with the woman riding the horse at the sabs. That happened, as far as you see.
Sorry, say that again.
You saw the woman riding at the sabs. The first thing we saw.
Yeah, I mean.
And then the next thing that happened, Andrea, in the video, the next thing is a sab grabs the horse by the bridle.
Okay.
Is that acceptable?
I think that's acceptable. As in, he's obviously trying to maybe defend himself or stop the rider from doing it again.
He could step away, couldn't he?
He could step away.
But he grabbed the bridle.
What I'm saying is it's unacceptable. If I start started whipping someone in the street because they come at me or held my hand or whatever, I would be arrested.
Okay, but if you went around grabbing my dog, right, grabbing the lead that my dog's on, you probably would get hit,
I would
Andrea,
still be
by
arrested
me.
if I started whipping you.
Well, we're changing it from being arrested to whether we think it's acceptable. If anyone can be arrested for anything and then cleared without charge. Grabbing the horse's bridle, right,
Yeah.
you think that's acceptable?
If he feels that it's going to stop her
Do you think it's acceptable? Do you think it's acceptable? Is it acceptable?
You know, he's scared. He's going to try and defend himself.
Right.
The saboteur
Rather than
was
stepping
not-
to one side.
The saboteur wasn't hitting the horse or doing anything.
No, but he was interfering. The horse and the rider rides at him. He could have stepped to one side. He would, in my view, have every complaint to say that he was being attacked by the woman. But the moment he grabs the bridle, then something changes, doesn't it? That's a choice. He's made a choice.
It's acceptable for someone walking on the street.
You're changing the conversation, just like our previous caller. Why don't we stick with the case?
Something starts in her head, the horse's rider's head, to make her so aggressive. And it's not acceptable in this day and age in any situation to be that aggressive.
Right,
It's not
but the counter argument is grabbing the bridle is in itself an act of aggression, which despite asking 3 times, Andrea, you still haven't said what you think, whether that is acceptable.
He wasn't doing it aggressively. He was just doing it.
Andrea, if I was to touch you on the arm, in a non-aggressive way, I could still technically be guilty of assault. It's not about how he does it, it's the fact that he did do it. He grabbed the bridle, and that puts him, some people in the audience are saying, that puts him right in the line of fire. You grab the bridle of the horse, you're interfering with the well-being of my horse, you're interfering with the safety of the rider, boom.
Whack a horse or whack the rider like that, I guarantee you he would have been immediately arrested and not investigated. Like, he would have been investigated afterwards. And
But the trouble is,
immediately.
Andrea, because he grabbed the horse. That's the problem. The problem that you keep trying to go around. That's the
Is that
problem.
illegal, grabbing a horse?
Well, I don't know, but you are interfering with someone's animal. You're putting the rider at risk. You are creating danger.
But it's illegal to whack someone with a whip.
Yeah, but it started with him grabbing the horse first, didn't it, Andrea? You just don't get it.
2 wrongs do not make a right.
No, they don't. But it does. That's one of the reasons, perhaps, why no one was arrested, which is your complaint. No one was arrested. One of the reasons, perhaps, no one was arrested is that the police can see both parties are in the wrong. But then it becomes what is
If
proportionate.
someone was in the wrong, if both parties are in the wrong, they are going to arrest them. I know.
They may yet do that, Andrea. I've done things that I've...
whacking somebody.
Yeah.
Like she was aggressive. I guarantee you, like, lots of these hunts. I live in Wiltshire.
We're generalising again, we're talking about other hunts. I'm not interested, all right? I'm not interested in other hunts and other ideas. I'm talking about this part and nothing else but, okay? And that's it. If you don't want to do it, go to another phoning show. Talk about another hunt. But today, we're talking about the Sussex and Romney Marsh hunt. Thank you for talking about something else and talking us out. We'll take a break, after which is added with all the other headlines, including lung cancer tests in supermarket car parks and why pregnant women should sleep on their sides. All those stories and plenty more in 4.